Fabulous super race.
Is this some kind of a joke? A pussycat and a mouse? This show is about crazy stunts and people putting their lives at risk for a big fat prize. It's not a nature documentary. Irving, call security and have these two...
Sir, it's... him. This always gives me the creeps, sir.
He's the president of Hollywood. He's supposed to give you the creeps.
Greetings, your tinseliness, imperious leader of Hollywood.
Smile, Irving.
I'm terrified, sir.
Now you look, J.W. The girls and I overheard what you were saying about this cat.
Hello and great day, everyone. It is June 3rd, 2011, and this is Tanya and Shane from washyourbrain.org, and we are fortunate to be joined with Freeman and his wife Jamie today. Freeman is a man who has been awake and aware to an unseen world for many years now, and his passion for research as well as synchronicity has led to him becoming a full-time speaker and teacher. He has been reaching out to the world through his radio show, Freeman TV, his website, and making public appearances. He does a wonderful job of observing events within our media and politics, and then traces them back to their esoteric roots and the not-so-hidden groups behind them. His wife Jamie is also a truth seeker and researcher, and is the lead writer and editor of the Encyclopedia of Weird Stuff. Together they continue to play connect the dots while a story too strange for fiction unfolds before them, after which they do a masterful job of presenting their efforts with others, offering not just explanations of our problems, but viable and practical solutions. Today we'll be focusing on Jamie's extensive knowledge of mind control in Hollywood and the entertainment world. Welcome, Freeman and Jamie. It's so nice to have you with us. How are you doing?
I'm
Great.
fine, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Fantastic to be here on Wash Your Brain.
Thank you very much. We're very fortunate to have you with us today.
Definitely. For those who are listening, our goal here is to kind of help you because we understand that the process of waking up is a difficult one. There's steps to it. You learn about various problems in the world. The world is broken. You understand that there's a small group of people behind this. And you understand that things like the Federal Reserve and other corporations are, in a way, ruling your lives, but you don't really understand how. So we're hoping that this talk today with Freeman and Jamie will help to show you where it all starts. And the thing behind it all that most people don't recognize is it all starts with magic. And so
That's
now
right.
I'll turn it over to Jamie, and she will start to explain how.
How magic works?
Or just how they're using it, the fundamentals of magic.
Let's start with a definition, an
Okay.
idea of what is magic. And
There
we definitely see that it is the mainstay of the elite, and it's part of the political program that is completely ignored, not realizing that many of the elite are members of secret societies that practice ancient magic rituals that have been passed down for thousands of years. And as we start to discover, all of the greatest scientific minds of the world have always studied the occult, and that most of our understandings of the universe came first from the occult or esoteric or magical realms. But the definition of magic, Jamie, what would you say?
Well, what's happening right now, humanity is starting to wake up to this concept that they have superpowers that we have been led to believe that are only in fairy tales, but they're actually really real.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being used against you every day. And so if you don't know the modus operandi of the sorcerers and the concepts of magic, then you'll be totally lost about what's happening in the world today. So a good definition, well, this one comes from Aleister Crowley, and he's not a personal favorite of mine, but he is one who has shaped the 20th century. So if you look around, sex, drugs, and rock and roll all came from Aleister Crowley. And he defined magic as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with the will. So the will force is one of the most important concepts of magic. You can't work magic without it. It's what drives you, you know? And so by this definition, anything could be a magical act. You're walking across the room. You use your imagination and your will to make a change in three-dimensional reality. Making an omelet could be considered a magical act. You know, you have your will and your imagination, a little bit of alchemy, and you have breakfast. But so we're doing this every day. And now we have a new definition. It's kind of updated, and it says magic is the science and art of causing change in consciousness to occur in conformity with the will, using means not currently understood by traditional Western science. So that means anything that you can imagine, anything you can symbolize can be made to produce a change in consciousness and therefore change in your environment, because if you change yourself, you're changing the world.
Exactly.
Very nice. Can you expand a little bit, like the difference between a sorcerer and a magician?
Well, I mean, not to just throw in the basic definition, but the idea between the magic and the magician and the sorcerer, one is that we are all magicians. And this is something that has been stomped upon by, well, religious fanaticism. Most of those that would study religion openly would see that magi or magicians visited Jesus on his birth. So the concept of using magic is actually a biblical tale. You look back to Moses fighting with the pharaonic magicians in Exodus as they do battles creating frogs and worms and lights and floods and plagues. And these were the forms of magic used in the biblical lore. But on another level, we are all magicians in that we create our reality, we create the third dimension without realizing it, causing miracles and synchronicities to occur in your path. But
well, this is the concept behind what the bleep do we know, and the secret. Thoughts create reality, and this is just the first step of magic, is your imagination. And so this is what is up for grabs in the war for your mind, is your imagination will. He is the first card in the tarot. He's number 1, and he's not really worried about what anybody thinks or anything. His goal is to unite himself with God, and this is known as high magic. And so he'll call upon his divine guiding force with prayer and gratitude and seeking enlightenment according to his own conscience, or what he would think is the Holy Spirit or the holy guardian angel. And he has surrendered his will to a higher spiritual authority. And magicians love humanity, and their efforts are for the benefit of everyone. And they have no ambition to impose their beliefs upon others, but they just aspire to, respectively learn from and teach those who have ears to hear. Yeah. But then you have a sorcerer, who I defined as someone who, seeks to enforce changes in consciousness on a grand scale. And he attempts to master command over the laws of nature according to his own will. And his philosophy favors the desires of the few, pitted against the good of the many, and his obsession is the quest for private power. So, carried to this furthest extreme, the sorcerer's ambition is to wield supreme authority over the entire universe and to make himself a god.
So in this way, Aleister Crowley, now he called himself 666 the Beast, and was definitely an anti-Christian. Member of many esoteric orders. Okay, so within Aleister Crowley's magical order, which is known as the Ordo Templi Orientis, or the Eastern Templars, they have a phrase that is passed around and actually spawned the hippie movement, which is, love is the law, love under will. Now, to us, this is more of a sorcerer statement, because a magician would say, love is the law, will under love, reversing the two and putting love in charge.
Yes.
So the Magician's Dictionary would define sorcery as the invocation of the gods to use them to work one's will. And Thelema is the Greek word for will, and it is the dictum of the Temple of Thelema, the religion based on Crowley's Book of the Law. And their motto is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And then the second part is, love is the law, love under will.
So this concept of do what thou wilt was what Crowley had said would be our next aeon. And so a magician, as he is, or sorcerer by our standards, because he was very selfish, he basically spawned the hippie movement with this concept of do what thou wilt. and was really the godfather of the 20th century and how everything fell together. And he said we were entering the age of Horus, and he called it the age of the crowned and conquering child. And this will play in very heavily into what we're saying today.
And for anyone listening who maybe their scientific brain is kind of listening to the word magic and getting confused, I would like to draw your attention to the atom. Science will tell you that the atom has all these particles, neutrons, protons. They're all spinning around, and they're all held together by big paws, magic.
Yes.
Right, exactly,
Well,
which would take you straight to CERN, but we won't go there yet.
But what we saw there with the Aleister Crowley example was that the rock and roll, sex, drugs, rock and roll movement was attacking but targeting the youth or the teenage, crowd, and that's a lot of where their success came from. And I think
when people talk about the British invasion, they don't realize how literal that is.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, yeah, good point.
No,
Crowley was a British intelligence officer, MI6.
Yeah, and you have one look at, say, the Rolling Stones that came over with their On Her Majesty's Satanic Service album.
Yeah.
I never quite get the title of that album correct. But in there, you will see the Scarlet Woman at the bottom of the picture, and meanwhile, the Stones are all dressed in their wizard outfits. Now, the Scarlet Woman, or the Harlot of Babylon, plays into our main themes of today, getting in with all of the stuff Jamie's going to tell us about on the ideas of why Beyonce dresses the way she does, why Lady Gaga does what she does, why Britney Spears and all of these girls are dressed up in these different goddess outfits and the different rituals that they're put through. This all goes back to Aleister Crowley's Scarlet Woman. And of course, this is the Scarlet Woman of Babylon of the Revelations, and the harlot that they would discuss in Revelations.
Around that time must have been when they figured out that the younger they go, or the earlier they start enforcing their will upon us, the more success they will have.
Well, one of the ways they do this is by symbolism. And it's their main modus operandi of mind control, because the language of symbols works on the subconscious level of the mind, because they're easy to grasp and meditate upon. They're hidden in plain sight, and they go unnoticed to the conscious mind. So if you don't know what all the meaning of the symbols that you're wearing, you're unwittingly participating in the ritual of the sorcerer and manifesting reality to his will, and it's probably very far off from what you think you want. Yeah.
And this is why now you see on all the clothing the death cult and the death culture.
Yeah. Yep.
It's almost as if they're programming a post-apocalyptic wear, so that we're already conditioned into the devastation before it even happens. And in the magical sorcerer realm, this is causing mass effect on everyone by the consciousness shift that they're doing through simple fashion. Now, as we get to the high-profile rituals that we see coming through Walt Disney, through the Teen Choice Awards, or even American Idol, this is when it all starts to get a bit freaky.
And so what we're talking about today is culture creation. And if you look in biology, a culture is a growth of, a population of microbes in an artificial environment like a petri dish. And this is known as the culture media. And by including or excluding particular substances into the media, the scientist or the sorcerer can control what cells will and won't develop and what directions the groups will go. So just the meanings of the words themselves, if you look at them,
is word magic.
Yeah. Sorcery.
Yeah, talk about capturing your imagination.
There's a ride in Epcot that it says right on the wall, how to capture your imagination. This is sponsored by Kodak. And so if you've seen South Park, the Imagination Land, you'll realize how powerful it is, because this is the foundation of all creativity and manifestation is your imagination. You have to see it in your mind's eye before it will become real.
I think it's GE that uses the phrase "your imagination at work," or there's the other that says "your world delivered."
Yeah, yep. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. And Disney is a perfect example of using catchy taglines such as those, and the impact that they've had on the children over the years.
People,
just think about when they say, when you wish upon a star.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So what is the star? The pentagram. It's the time-honored symbol of the magical arts. It stands for all magical symbols and talismans, and specifically the 5-pointed stars is the magician's sine qua non. It is representative of the material world and human mastery over it. But it also has other esoteric meanings. It's the 5 points of the pentagram symbolize the 4 elements plus spirit. And so when you see it pointed up, it's pointing towards God or spirit. And then if you invert it, so all magic has the reverse side, and that's black magic. So there's white magic and black magic, and black magic has no symbols of its own. It's only an inverted power.
Okay, got you.
So if you turn it upside down, it's known as the sigil of Baphomet. I'm sure you've seen that, the star of Set, the goat head inside the Ouroboros. Okay, this is the god of the Sabbath of sorcerers, and it represents the power of darkness combined with the generative fertility of the goat, the goat of Mendes.
And people don't relate any of this stuff to Walt Disney or even Steven Spielberg, who is another one that's a master at this type of programming.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Disney, unbeknownst to the most of the world, is actually a military-industrial complex, a military-industrial corporation gathering that then programs children to warfare. And this was shown dramatically in their early renditions in their first films, that when the military took over Disney Studios and they started to produce wartime propaganda.
Whoa, wait a minute. They took over. Tell us about that. They took over the studios?
In 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and the U.S. officially entered World War II, the next day, Walt Disney arrived to work at the studio in Burbank to find that it had been commandeered as a primary defense station to guard against the nearby Lockheed plant against a possible airstrike. Wow. And all his film equipment was replaced by anti-aircraft weaponry, and the parking lot was filled to capacity with crates of ammunition and jeeps. So Disney was outraged when he learned that his was the only studio to be turned into a makeshift military base. And during this occupation, the studio became a virtual war factory with well over 90% of its production in the service of government training and education and propaganda films.
I mean, you can watch Disney cartoons on how to load your anti-tank weapon.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Was that Disney on the front Disney on the front lines?
Disney on the front lines actually boasts how Donald Duck did more to get people to pay their income taxes than all of the propaganda campaigns combined. The Nazis were so taken by Disney's ability to program people to do all the things necessary for war that Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist, actually adopted Walt Disney's methods and started making cartoons of their own to program the Nazi children to warfare.
Yeah, there's a classic 1943 version of Chicken Little, and you can clearly see the outline of modern-day mind control at work in this story, where you're introduced to a coop of chickens that mirror human society. And so they have the lead big man on campus, the rooster, Cocky Locky, and he's the main chicken inspector, supervisor, and then they have the other classes of society, like the knitting birds and the gossiping birds and the birds that love going to the bar, just and then there's Chicken Little, he's a little naive new egg, but they say he's generally a good egg. And then there's Foxy Loxy, and he's the sly hungry fox who ponders the best way to catch a chicken, and he's put off by this tall fence. So he decides, why should he jump into the coop and risk his life to catch one chicken when he can use psychology to get all of them where he wants to go? And so he has this little red book that he quotes out of during the cartoon, and the first tenet is, if you tell him a lie, don't tell him a little one, tell a big one. And this is straight out of Mein Kampf. Hitler said, tell them a lie, they won't believe it unless it's grandiose.
They were actually going to use Mein Kampf on the cover of the book, but then they had to switch it in the end, and so then you'll see that the cover simply says psychology at this point.
Wow, yeah.
And we kind of equate Alex Jones with Chicken Little.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the film, the fox, he steals a piece of wood with a 5-pointed pentagram painted on it, and he throws it over the fence, and it hits Chicken Little in the head. And Chicken Little's all dazed by this, pentagram. And the fox whispers through the fence, "This is the voice of doom and the sky is falling." And so Chicken Little rushes to warn all the other little chickens to show them the proof and the star and the bump on his head. He's got evidence, right?
Yeah.
And so the chickens are all frightened until Cocky Locky appears as the voice of reason and identifies the star as just a piece of wood, and the sky's not falling. So the fox is temporarily foiled, but he has other techniques up his sleeve. So he goes back to his book, and his book says, undermine the faith of the masses and their leaders.
Oh my gosh.
So the fox infiltrates the different social groups, speaking to the fence, little voices in their heads. He's spreading rumors and provoking the chickens to fight amongst themselves, and they demote Cocky Locky as the king of the roost because he's not believing in all of their
propaganda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then the fox goes back to his book and he says, by the use of flattery, insignificant people can be made to look upon themselves as born leaders. And the fox convinces Chicken Little that it is his turn now, that Cocky Locky has fallen out of favor and he should be the one to step up and lead the chickens. So he screams that he's their new leader and begins to debate about the validity of the claims the sky is falling. Then the fox throws another star over the fence and it hits Cocky Locky in the head. And all the chickens witness this event. It's kind of like a false flag.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all run to Chicken Little for guidance. And so the fox counsels him to rush everyone to the caves and break down their secure fence in the process out of the protection of the farmer and his shotgun. And he leads them right down a path set up by the fox. And the moral of the story at the end is don't believe everything you read.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fox was like, well, you didn't think this was going to turn out good, did you? Because he's got them all in his belly now.
Well, he's picking his teeth.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything
Now,
you
if
read.
I could just add a modern representation of this, now they've come out with a new version of Chicken Little. And I think it's even in like high-def 3D animation. This new Chicken Little actually portrays an acorn hitting Chicken Little in the head, and then the foe at the end is actually an alien invasion, which turned out to be a fake invasion because they weren't actually evil aliens. But when we start to look at the puzzle that we're in now, and as they start to promote this alien invasion, the event, you name it, well, Barack Obama was actually brought into office through a group known as Acorn, and will be bringing about false alien invasion. So already they've got the programming
Look at this,
Crazy, right?
Yeah, and it's always right in front of, it's so blatant that, like you said, Jamie, once you start to look for it or know what you're looking for or start to see the symbols, it really is everywhere. I mean, I even say that on our website. It's like, where is it? Look around. Everywhere. Right. It really is.
Let's list off some of the concepts that Disney has brought to the forefront.
Yes.
Some things that strike my mind are things like The Little Mermaid. Well, let's start with, if you don't mind me playing host for a second.
No, not at all.
Of them killing the mother and what psychological effect this has and why they kill the mother or these girls have no mother. Or like, one of my favorite scenarios, Little Finding Nemo, where the barracuda comes and eats his mom in the first 5 minutes. You can pretty much guarantee if you're going to turn on a Disney horror film such as The Little Mermaid or Tangled, you're going to find that the mom is killed immediately.
Always. Even Bambi, all the way through. All the way through.
What we're looking at here is the destruction of the family unit, because the family unit is the first best defense against dark forces.
Mm-hmm.
And your mother is the chief of that. And so when you look at all these princesses, the main ones that they promote, you got Snow White, Belle, Ariel, Jasmine, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella.
Yes.
So what do all these girls have in common? They don't have a mother. Snow White's mother, actually, she's the evil stepmother, right? She's trying to kill her because Snow White's so beautiful.
Yeah, there's always one of those.
Belle doesn't have a mom. She's just omitted from the story. Ariel doesn't have a mom. She has 7 sisters, but, they suck in the story, and they don't have her at all. Jasmine has no mother. Princess Rose, or, Sleeping Beauty, she's not raised by her mother. She's raised by 3 fairies. Of course, we have Cinderella, who is also raised by an evil stepmother, and her sisters are awful. So what they're doing is destroying every type of feminine instinct and bond that we have.
Oh my God, yeah.
And making girls, instead of sisters, they're making them into rivals. And so instead of loving mother-daughter-sister relationships, all we have is
Competitive
Girls.
rivalry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then along with this, well, let's continue on with the idea of the destruction of the feminine, because now this leaves the girls with nothing. But of course, this is great for Hollywood because now they can produce shows like Bridezilla.
Oh, yeah. Goodness.
Bridezilla comes from a schism in the mind that happens when the girls come of age who have been watching all these fairy tales their whole life and trying to live their existence as a princess, and they have no archetypes or role models for the full moon phase of their life, which is motherhood, womanhood, the most powerful part of your life. And in the fairy tale, the curtain ends after you say I do. And so once you produce a child, you're pretty much dead. And so all these women are going through this phase in their life where the wedding is the penultimate experience of their entire life, and they have nothing else after that because it's just a blank slate. They have no programming.
The only programming that they might get from in their moon phase would be Sex in the City, which is actually scripted by all homosexual males.
Yeah. So
Yes, yep.
is a replacement of the mother goddess with the warrior goddess. And we can talk about that because, all the goddesses that they worship and that you can find in memorials are all dedicated to war. There's no nurturing mother goddess. It's always the violent military goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I call it is, their Project Crazy Bitch.
Perfect.
If you talk to as many people as I do, you'll realize that there's something wrong with girls.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yeah.
And I'm trying to tell you that it's because of the programming. They're going crazy at this moment in life. And it also has to do with, trauma-based mind control. Look at all the lyrics of the songs that have the word crazy in it.
Oh, wow.
Britney Spears sings, "You Drive Me Crazy." Hannah Montana sings, "Let's Get Crazy." Taylor Swift says, "You make me crazy, you're crazy, you're crazier." Beyonce says, "You got me looking so crazy right now," Madonna says, "Crazy for you." Rihanna says, "What's wrong with me? I'm going crazy now." So this has a lot of esoteric meanings for these girls, deeper than just being a little crazy, because they were actually traumatized and programmed as multiples. If you know about trauma-based mind control.
Yes.
That when they reach about 27, 28, the world starts to make sense to them and they realize what's been happening to them. And they start to deprogram. So then you've got Britney Spears, attacking paparazzi with umbrellas and being rushed to the hospital because she's got multiple personality disorder. She's shaving her head. She's going crazy.
Yep. A lot of male musicians at that age have committed suicide. And, it's not just with the girls, it's with the boys as well.
Yeah.
And you often find with these male representations, such as Jim Morrison or John Lennon, that they will have a witch attached to them. Like Yoko Ono.
Yeah.
Remember the name of Jim Morrison's witch?
Pamela.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the goddess of crazy is Kali, the Indian blood goddess. She's pictured trampling over men with a belt of men's heads, and she's lusting for blood. And this is also an aspect of Aleister Crowley's goddess, Babylon. So it's a Crowley Scarlet Woman Babylon trinity.
Oh, wow.
That he's trying to bring about.
Of Kali fornication.
Uh-huh.
Right. Let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's talk about sex.
They're totally programming these children into the sexual traits, and as we know now, they're trying to make all this sex education into even, I think, kindergarten.
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus, in her song, she says, for those who don't know me, I can get a bit crazy. I have to get my way 24 hours a day because I'm hot like that.
Now, of course, this was Hannah Montana's breakout, right? As she transformed from Hannah Montana, which is a split dual personality concept, so that you're presenting one person of yourself to one group of people and a false person to the other, but they're actually both false, right? So Hannah Montana.
This happens a lot in the music industry, yeah.
Exactly. She is the representation of the split dual personality, or DID, dissociative association.
And her name goes back to Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of war.
Hannah of the Mountain is Inanna. But I was going to say
glorification of secrets, keeping secrets and living hidden lives is glorified through it as well.
Exactly. And when you see her come out in that song that Jamie just quoted, she comes out as a fallen angel in a cage.
Yes.
And so her first breakout as Miley Cyrus, now of adult age, and they always play upon like Justin Bieber. Oh, he's almost old enough to have sex with. Same with Hannah Montana or even the Olsen twins. Everybody waited for them to be of age. And
Yes.
And
So,
Brittany.
yeah, what we're looking at here is black magic in its fullest, and it is centered on homosexuality and pedophilia.
Yep. Well, look at Bieber. I mean, all these older ladies, Kardashian, and I forget a few others that.
Yeah, Kim
are-
Kardashian was hiding out in Justin Bieber's dressing room at one award show
Yeah, and
backstage,
how old is
saying
he?
she's
He's
waiting
so-
for him to get off stage because she's gonna get him. So this poor boy's probably scared of women by now.
And imagine if that was reversed. Say it was, Jay-Z or somebody that was standing there waiting to get into young Hannah Montana's bedroom.
Right. Exactly.
That was just a similar time. They're making a big deal on the news about boys painting their nails. Like I guess there was a shot in some magazine of I can't remember the celebrity, but she was painting her son's toenails, and they made a big deal about it. How she's confusing the boy and confusing his sexuality. And
Well, I saw a book in the bookstore downtown called My Princess Boy.
Yeah.
yeah,
That
And I was
probably
like, now I've
Angelina.
seen everything, because it's a storybook about a little boy who likes to dress as a princess. So
Well, talking about that, I mean, if you go into like a Walmart or a Target, and I know you guys have, can you talk about that a little bit, the aisles and what you see?
Well, it's all the same, right? You go to
Yeah.
Target and you go down the girls' aisle. It's all pink. Pink
Yes.
princess, tiaras, boas, high heels.
Bubblegum cell phones.
Nothing to do with
Yeah.
motherhood or nurturing or nature or
No, makeup, sex.
anything that a
Yeah.
woman is put on the earth for. It's all princess programming. And then you go down the boys' aisle and it's all blue and Star Wars and Transformers and UFC fighters and war. So what we're looking at is a princess warrior programming, because the boys have to rescue the princess, right?
Yes.
Princess is not good for anything but getting in trouble and needing help. And what we have today, we don't really have any monsters to slay other than financial monsters. So what the boy have to do is go make the money, go out and fight the good fight in the world to bring home the pink cell phone or whatever it is that princess is to think she deserves.
I mean, we were just at the costume store, and there was a little boy there, and he was like, I want a Star Wars costume. I want a Star Wars costume with a gun. They make a costume with a cowboy and a gun. I want a gun. I want a gun. And I mean, this little kid was, 4 or 5. I don't know, maybe a little older. And we just see it. They're running around in their Clone War outfits, Clone War victory, it says. And then the girls in their Hannah Montana wear. I mean, we honestly had no idea what we were going to find when we went seeking Hannah Montana. We had maybe just
I didn't even
noted.
know who Hannah Montana was. I was walking down the stores doing my shopping, and I keep seeing this face. Every aisle. What is this
That
face?
face is more than the teeth,
I'm like, this girl's on more stuff than anything. And so I started kind of cataloging in my mind, how many products are there with just this one person? And you couldn't even go one aisle. It was in every single section: the perfume, the school aisle, the party supplies, the bedroom supplies, the...
Well, as we began to make this film, we were like, do you think there's Hannah Montana food? And just as we were in there filming, they came out with the brand new Hannah Montana cereal. And I mean, it was right as we're filming in all these. We went to grocery stores. We have now been to 3 countries and have yet to find a Hannah Montana free zone. We found her at Hobby Lobby, at the auto parts.
In other countries as well?
In London, we were given Hannah Montana cupcakes. We saw Hannah Montana microphones and wigs for sale at the grocery store, at Tesco. Where else?
Wow.
Australia. And
Oh
so
my
we have
gosh.
this all documented, and we did just release I put it up there, our shortened version. This was actually a working version, but I wanted to get it up for our show together here on
Yes.
Wash Your Brain. So you can see Hannah World now on freemantv.com and get an idea of just, because we have an hour's worth of footage, one after another, and we have never shown the same product twice.
Well, that's why I watched that, and and of course I know what's going on. I can see it everywhere. I was in shock. So was Shane. We were both like, oh my God. And it just kept going and going and going. And the products, it never stops. I mean, it's everything from panties to toothpaste to SpaghettiOs to cereal to
SpaghettiOs,
anything and everything. Yeah, the food, even the food.
So what we're looking at here is the use of ritual paraphernalia to function as an aid to the imagination. And during an evocation ritual, a magician will envelop all of his 5 senses, the 5 points of the pentagram, with the essence of the entity that he wishes to conjure. And all the senses are employed. So, obviously there's a princess product for every one of your senses and more. And the fundamental patterns of ritual is emotion plus, sentimentality. So imagine your typical tiny princess watching her favorite movie. She possesses all the elements of a well-run ritual, the clothing, the altar. She's probably got a princess cup, a wand, anything. Yeah. She's got all the senses enveloped in this princess entity, and it's working.
You can see this in Halloween, where, even though there were all these Hannah Montana outfits that you could buy, along with her own clothing line or wigs and things of that nature, the microphone, they still had a separate Hannah Montana costume for Halloween. And
right next to the monarch butterfly costume.
Right next to the monarch, yes. And monarch programming is what we're talking about. We could get to that. But I wanted to say that how much they had captured our imagination can be witnessed in Halloween, in that no one now comes up with their own creation of a Halloween costume and only depicts themselves as their favorite Hollywood character.
Yes.
So they have completely captured the imagination.
Yeah. Yeah, taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight, and memory are all manipulated in this atmosphere to create the desired entity. And also, familiar songs like A Whole New World or Kiss the Girl become literal mantras.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Or like the one they sing in Tangled, which is Crush Your Mother's Soul Like a Grape.
Tangled is a great example of the destruction of the feminine, because I don't know if you've seen it, but it's Rapunzel, and she's kidnapped by the evil queen and raised as her daughter because the evil queen, or sorceress, or whatever you want to call her, she's looking for eternal life, and she finds it in Rapunzel's hair. So she has to keep Rapunzel close to her or she'll deteriorate. And so she's keeping this little girl locked up in the tower and
sucking her soul.
Look at all this ritual everywhere, too. It's like so blatant.
But think about how this would make a young girl feel about her mother, who's trying to protect her and keep her from going out with, the boy comes along and he's a scoundrel, a thief. He's no good, really. And he comes along trying to get her out of the tower, and mom says no, and she thinks she knows better than mom. So she goes off with him to the city, or Babylon, which is what, every city is based on, basically. Is the apostate city of Babylon, which was the center of the first attempt to create a one-world government.
And a one-world culture.
And a one-world religion in the Tower of Babel, not based on God, but based on scientific, accomplishments of men. And
then here she is being hoarded by her unreal mother, and so then the concept comes to the child that my mom is an evil woman that is sucking my soul because she won't let me go out with the thief. But secretly, I'm actually a princess, and when I escape this evil witch of a mother, who they sing the song Crush Her Soul Like a Grape, I will then be a princess and can escape all of this.
In the city. So,
and of course, where do you escape? But you go straight like Hannah Montana out of your trailer onto the stripper's pole, as she did at the Teen Choice.
Well, that's if you're unlucky. But if you notice, Rapunzel's sigil is a 8-pointed star, that sun sigil. So the 8-pointed star in Aleister Crowley's system of magic stands for Babylon.
Wow.
And so you're taking the feminine out of nature, out of her element, and her source of female power, which is the earth, and putting her in the city 12 feet or 20 feet or more above the ground on concrete in high heels. How much more disconnected can you get from your roots than walking in New York City in Manolo Blahniks like Carrie?
Yep. Totally disconnected.
And even she says in Sex and the City, which I've seen every episode, I think I know what I'm talking about. It's written by homosexual men. If you've seen the sequel to Sex and the City 2, it starts with a gay wedding.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Liza Minnelli singing "Single Ladies" by Beyonce, and it just gets worse from there. But these women are not women. They're, I don't know, they're scary. They're the four horsemen of the apocalypse because they have no maternal instincts, no feminine qualities other than
the princess program.
The princess
keeping
program.
their shoes in the oven.
Yeah, even Carrie, she says, "I don't cook. I keep my shoes in the oven." You know.
Yeah, exactly. So, look at what Disney's doing. It's targeting, babies, even toddlers, very, very young.
People look at the subtle things like the advertisement for Tangled. Her hair wrapped around this thief actually spells the word sex. And so people are looking for these little subtle programming techniques, what they consider subliminal programming, when actually it's right out in front of your face in the storyline that you should be considering, not the little subtle sexes that are snuck in. Yeah. That's just for sales. But the entire storyline has to be analyzed. You have to look at things like The Little Mermaid and see that she sold her only talent, her voice, to a black witch octopus in order to be combined with a man that couldn't care less about her.
Yeah, he didn't do anything for her in that movie. She saved his life. She gave up everything to be with him, and then he goes off and marries the black witch anyway.
The sequel got into a lot more of what you were talking about alienating the mother and daughter relationship. The daughter Melody was locked up from the ocean because Ariel was afraid that she might be called to the ocean. Her own fears kept her from the thing that she loved, and she grew to hate the mother and ended up going out with the bad witch.
And Cinderella 2 gives you a glimpse of princess programming in that when the curtain falls on so Cinderella is the story that everyone wants to live because nobody has any money, and so they're all expecting this prince to come along and rescue them and give them everything that they want and take them away from their evil family. And so they live happily ever after in Cinderella 1, but open credits on the sequel, Cinderella 2, and Prince Charming drives her up to the castle and pretty much drops her off on the doorstep and says, "See ya, I gotta go to work."
Yeah.
I don't know who's seen that. So he's not even in the story. And she has to sit there in her castle and learn what it means to be a princess, which basically turns out to be just party planning.
Yeah.
And then they have the Princess Protection Program, which was another movie using Major Mason as the protectorate of all these princesses. Now, here's the question. Why promote monarchy in a democracy or a republic, whatever way you want to look at it?
What do American girls have to do with being a princess?
And how close was that Cinderella story to this actual Kate and William wedding? They were almost dressed in the exact same fashion.
Well, they even
totally
equated her to Cinderella being rescued by the prince because she's a commoner. They called her. She's a commoner. Kate Middleton. A romantic story, a love story, blah, blah, blah. These two kids, I feel bad for them because they are not in love. I don't even know if they like each other, but if you've noticed an interview of this ultimate love story, they're awful. All they say is, "We're really good friends. We're very good friends."
And then she was given that sapphire ring that was given to Princess Diana. I mean, that would creep me out.
Yeah, that's
So what we're looking at here is the true life princess story, which is just awful because after you have children, you're no longer needed.
Yeah.
Even Princess Diana called herself a broodmare for the royal family.
Yep.
And after she gave him 2 heirs, then they bumped her.
Now, this kind of leads us to the vampire.
Yeah, let's talk about vampires. I've been watching, over, since the 80s, the romantification, if that's even a word, of vampirism. I remember reading, Anne Rice novels and falling in love. And in the various things over the years, and now like Twilight. So what do you guys think about that?
Well,
worst movie ever. I was blown away. I gotta say that when Jamie invited me to go see Twilight, we had heard of this phenomenon, and everyone was piling into the theater to go see this
vampire
movie ever. So, we wanted to see what the hype was about. I knew nothing about the movie, and I was flabbergasted as I witnessed the beautification of the vampire. No longer do they rot in the sunlight or burn up. Now they glitter.
No. Yeah. They're so sexy. Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is the master plan is to get girls to fall in love with evil.
Yeah.
We're about to develop this other senses of sight, and we're about to realize what royalty actually is. So first you had to get all the girls to want to be a princess.
Yep.
Right? But in real life, the monarchy are, horrible, awful cheaters, liars, thieves, blood bathers, backstabbers,
double crossers.
There's nothing good about it, right?
Yeah.
But you have to get the American public to be in love with royalty. But then, if you do a little homework, you figure out what royalty actually is.
And if we could take this to that ultimate level, to the concept of the vampire. Now, if you start to track vampirism back, you actually find that, this is a cultural belief that goes through many nations, many generations, and is one of those things that just never died. Well, the original vampire, of course, was the aristocracy, as you start to look at, say, Anne Rice type stuff. Of course, they've got all the boest men of Hollywood in there, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, but when you start to take this story back, you go back to some of these aristocracies, or you go back to Vlad the Impaler,
which he was known as the son of the dragon.
Gets into all of the reptilian symbolism. You go back to men like Saint Germain, who was a man who was known to have lived forever. And he's a very famous person inside of magical realms.
An ascended master of theosophy.
An ascended master. And you find that he actually was the son of Prince Ragoski of Transylvania. And now you start to wonder, okay, now we're looking at this picture. And we find that eternal life is one of the much sought tools of the Illuminati. Every queen has sent their Spaniards or their men out to seek this fountain of youth. It was a legitimate quest. Well, as we start to get back to the dragon symbolism, and you look at the queen, and you find, of course, the dragon of London, and you find the black dragon sitting out in front of the money district, and all of the dragon symbolism, and this connection between the vampires and the reptilians.
Mm-hmm.
So
think about how many commonalities there are between the reptilian lore of David Icke and a vampire. Drinking blood, eternal life, no soul, no conscience, can only come out at night. There's lots of others like, drinking blood has always been a feature of the occult ritual. In the olden days, it was known as starfire, and they would drink the female lunar essence, and because it was governed by the moon and it had magical powers.
And let's not forget, like, Queen Mary, who would bathe in virgin blood.
Yeah. And vampires through the Vampire Chronicles, Anne Rice's books, they all, if you were to actually read the series, it's actually almost like a blueprint for making magic. They explain astral projection. They explain pretty much any kind of psychic ability that one could utilize. But then they say that it's a vampiric power. It's a part of their dark gift. And as opposed to just an ability that we all as magicians are able to harness.
So perhaps, as we move into our new cycle here and maybe start to attain some of these paranormal powers as commonplace, as the military has found with remote viewing that we are all psychic, and many levels we're starting to awaken, maybe even mutate like X-Men into a new form of human that has the ability to see through the veils. And perhaps, just maybe, all of this vampire programming to get the women to love old Tom Cullen or
Edward Cullen.
Edward, is a ploy to get people to accept when we can actually view these reptilians
as
in their true form.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if you saw the movie Daybreakers, they blatantly came out and did it. Just showed that the world was being controlled by vampires, and eventually they started running out of blood, and therefore everyone knew, and they started opening blood banks in order to get themselves blood. It's really no different than what you see in our world right now, except for they haven't come right out and said, we're sucking your souls and feeding off of that.
Yeah, there's an HBO show called True Blood about redneck vampires, and they have this ability to glamour people, just stare them down and hypnotize them. And make them do whatever they want. And if you go to The Biggest Secret and you look up David Icke, he says that the reptilians have the same ability, the stare, the serpent stare,
yes,
to put you in a trance.
or to create a holographic image for you to view. The Vampires in Anne Rice's books had that ability where they could basically, it's the same thing as putting someone into a trance, but you'd put an image out in front of them and they would believe it was real.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, we watch stuff on YouTube. There's this one series called Tell Evil Zion, and it's basically television broken up into 3 words.
Yes.
I mean, when you see enough of these Fox reporters, now realize Fox is one of the words that you can create out of the numerology of 666. So as we start to look at a lot of the satanic symbolism that we see around us, from the bitten apple on your Macintosh to the numerous mentions of Fox, such as Lucius Fox in the Batman series, Lucifer 666, Fox equals 666.
But you're right, they're setting us up to accept these things. It's happening within every type of different media or community, even from video games to music. If you were to listen to some Eminem lyrics, he talks quite often about being the Rain Man, which if you were to do some esoteric research, you'll find out is quite significant. He's also often talking about being possessed by devils and how the women love him. And that's a big part of what you're saying, is teaching females, young females, to identify with, it went from the bad boy, the guy with the leather jacket, to now straight up the vampire and the demon.
Well, if you don't like vampires, if blood drinking isn't your thing, you do have other options as well. Because in the Egyptian rite of Freemasonry, you're made to make a choice between vampirism or lycanthropy, which is a werewolf.
Which is the other half of Twilight.
Right.
Yes.
So she has to choose between a vampire and a werewolf. And this is her only options in life. But
and then they threw that all together with Underworld, where they had the princess warrior, dark princess warrior, of course, because you can't be a light princess warrior. That's not possible. It's only the Wicked Witch that has that kind of power.
Yeah. I had this great picture from Barnes & Noble, and it's just it says teen paranormal romance, and it's an entire section of teen romances that feature monsters.
Wow.
Now you can take that to one more level with the latest in Disney programming. You have Percy Jackson and the Olympians, or my more favorite, the Kane Chronicles, which has yet to make it to the theaters, but I've read the book, The Red Pyramid. And in this concept, they are teaching children to invoke Egyptian entities into their soul to give them powers, which is a prime form of magic. And usually the elite are doing this very thing. It's believed that many of the Astors and the Rockefellers and such gather together to channel the Egyptian deities known as the Nine. And you'll find the Nine popping up in Hollywood all over the place once you're aware of it. Even the concepts behind the Nine are in a movie called Nine. Yeah. And now they're teaching these children that they have to invoke these Egyptian entities into their souls in order to have these superpowers. Meanwhile, they're turning them into dark heroes, as you were saying.
Yeah. Well, think about this. I just wanted to add one more thing to the girls and vampires equation. What is the first romance story in the Bible after Adam and Eve? But it is human women having children with fallen angels.
Yes.
To produce the Nephilim.
Yep.
Right there, the Nephilim, or the fallen angels that were crafted in here. This is told to us in an ancient book, an extra biblical book known as the Book of Enoch. Mm-hmm. And in the Book of Enoch, he really well describes what it's like to leave planet Earth. Very interesting for being written back, 2,000 years ago. Does a very great job of describing what it would be like to leave the planet. I don't know how, if he didn't leave the planet, how he would know this, but he was taken to the land of the gods and then brought back and was given all the depictions and descriptions of the fallen angels. And they were listed, categorized for who they were and what they gave to mankind, which there was one known as Azrael, who gave mankind warfare and taught the women to wear makeup and earrings. And this came from the fallen angels, which of course Hannah Montana presented in her first breakout video as a fallen angel. Well, when you start to look into the cultural programming, and for the boys' side, we have the warrior or the dark hero programming. And in this side, we find that Batman and Superman. Now, Disney just bought Marvel Comics because they understand how well this programs. You find out that Batman's grandfather was actually a founding member of Skull and Bones, which is the elite occult magical order that rules America. When you realize that then in 2000 they killed Batman, or they broke Bruce Wayne's spine, he was replaced by this vicious killer who ripped out the enemy's spines and gouged out their bellies, stuff that Batman never did. Batman was a detective, and he didn't have any superpowers. All he had was his mind and his, he was like, anyway, they replaced him with this vicious killer, the new Batman 2000, and the character was no longer Bruce Wayne, but Azrael. He had been replaced by a fallen angel. At the same time, Superman died. He was killed by Doomsday, which, of course, is the whole ploy. When you hear Barack Obama saying, actually, I was sent here by my father from Krypton to save planet Earth, this is all part of the current programming with the incoming asteroids and alien invasions. Well, Superman dies from Doomsday and is replaced by 6 clones, and the lead clone being a Superman dressed all in black wearing guns. Now, what does Superman need with guns? He's got X-ray vision and laser vision, he's got superpowers and can fly. What is he doing with guns? But here's the programming. But of course, the 6 clones of Superman didn't really take off, and he was really replaced and usurped by another comic book company known as Image, and their Superman was known as Hellspawn. And Hellspawn is then fighting pedophile rapists as his evil villains. So you get the first copy of Spawn, and he's dealing with the Violator, and then fighting a rapist pedophile.
His handler is also the head of a secret society, of a long-run secret society of protectors of the secrets, as they said.
This story reminds me of, the ancient story of Horus and Set, which is what the Aeon is, what we're supposedly in. Well, actually not anymore, but we can get to that later. But Crowley brought about in the Aeon of Horus, who was continually being molested and raped by his evil uncle Set.
Now, this is where we get the terms Horus rising, or the horizon, and sun setting, or set. And the other word that you can make out of 666 is off. And so the light on is the Heliopolis, the sun city of Egypt, and off is 666, or the dark side.
Wow.
So talking about this programming the boys for war, there's one secret that is so powerful that if it were revealed, it would cause such an upheaval to the system that the spell of, the Illuminati might instantly be broken. And this occult knowledge is so shocking that you might find it hard to believe at first, but bear with me. And it's that humans are good.
What?
Yes.
They're good.
You mean they had to work to make people kill other people?
Contrary to an abundance of evidence that would suggest otherwise, it is a fact that people are not really that great at killing each other. Now, I know you think this is outrageous. But there's a lot of proof. In the early months of World War I, on Christmas Eve, the men on both sides, they laid down their arms and joined in a spontaneous celebration, despite orders to continue killing each other. The official truce spread across the front lines, and they participated in soccer and even put up a Christmas tree and sang carols. And right there in no man's land, which is, the battlefield between the trenches, they all met together, had Christmas together, went back and started killing each other because they had to.
But of course, most of them fire above the heads. It's only through the trauma-based mind control that we now call military boot camp that people can even be made into killers.
Yeah,
there's
exactly. They break them.
Body of evidence that demonstrates that humans have a natural aversion to killing. Much of the research has been conducted by the military. And in the midst of the fighting in the Second World War, the American Army was faced with this extraordinary number of cases involving mental breakdowns among its troops. Because 49% of all the soldiers evacuated from combat were sent home suffering from, now what we call post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And so in desperation, the Army turned to psychoanalysis, which is Freud and that whole group And they even send
elite.
up centers, psychological testing centers. Like, what? You don't like killing people? Report to your nearest doctor for evaluation. Why don't you like this? So it's all mind control, and humans do not want to be doing this. That they have to be poked and prodded and traumatized and
Start from children. Get the little kids running around the store asking for Star Wars guns.
And there's a great cartoon by Disney that you can watch about this called Education for Death and the Making of a Nazi. And the very first thing that you have to do to make a super soldier is separate them from their mother.
Ah.
There's always a great emphasis in any movies or media that we start interacting with other species from other planets or even just new cultures that we had never discovered before, and how they view us as violent. And there's always this great emphasis put on, like if you think of, what was her name, Lulu in Fifth Element, when she watched that video on the history of humanity, it was all of us killing each other. It was all of the bombs. It was everything. It was, it's all in our history from the Native Americans as well. They tell us that the Native Americans were violent, and that's, we became violent because we came over here and we saw them and they were violent. And we had to combat them, and it's just been in our blood, our genetic memory ever since.
Well, this is a totally satanic worldview, and I mean that in every sense of the word, because you got creationism versus evolution, and if you believe in evolution, then you basically think that we're just smart animals.
Yeah.
And even the Disney nature films will show you nothing but survival of the fittest propaganda. It's always the killer whale killing the seal, the lion taking down the deer, the predator versus prey, and this is programming satanic.
Yeah, Disney's wildlife films.
Because there's so many other things that you could talk about in a nature film besides predator and prey, but they want to ingrain that in your mind that life is a brutal struggle and no one is there to help you, so you might as well just eat everything you can because you're nothing but evolved animal.
Oddly enough, the other part of what they show us is the sex. And most of the sex that they're showing us.
Reptilian brain, sex and violence.
Most of the sex that they're showing us is also the species that quote unquote rape each other or take it aggressively as well.
Right.
Good point. Yep.
Well, that leads me to think about Lady Gaga.
Yeah, there you go.
Because here she is putting poison recipes into her videos to teach all the children how to kill. Teaching this whole Nazi propaganda idea of the lesser beings, and also then dressing herself up as Mickey Mouse and killing her boyfriend. We kind of feel like Lady Gaga. Well, now what had happened was Britney had broken her programming. She broke free. She said she didn't want them plugging things into her anymore. She didn't want them putting things in her head, and so she shaved her head so that she could no longer be used as a pristine ritual goddess. And this was the same thing that one of the Mothers of Darkness came out, Arizona Wilder, said that she had dyed her hair brown because they want their goddesses blonde, and that didn't really work for her, so then she shaved her head. Exact same thing that Britney Spears did going into Esther's hair salon, which is the name that Madonna has now taken on in her Kabbalistic practices. And of course, she raised Britney in this high-profile ritual where she dressed as the worshipful master of a Freemasonic lodge in her top hat, came down 13 steps to the song Hollywood, which is the magician's wand, and then gave Britney a kiss. Now, Britney, of course, being ex-Mouseketeer. And then also Christina Aguilera was there, who is also an ex-Mouseketeer, as well as Lindsay Lohan, Justin Timberlake, Michael Jackson, Madonna, LaToya Jackson. I could list all of the Disneyite stars that are placed in front of us.
Yes.
Okay. So now we actually feel that Lady Gaga, so there are no such thing as celebrities. They are crafted, they are manufactured and used as propaganda tools to give us. And Britney broke, right?
Yeah,
she broke. And they tried putting her in a wig, sticking her up on the stage, lip syncing, but, no one was going for it. So they had to replace her, put out this new ritual goddess. Now, we feel like they actually were playing into all of our thoughts and theories. They had realized that we had understood now this high-profile ritual, watching all of these type of blood sacrifices on the shows, and gave us Lady Gaga, who came out in Rolling Stone magazine saying that her entire persona came from a dream that she had, where she saw a girl being abused on a table with her wrist slit, and she was pouring honey into the wounds. And as she related this story to her mother says, "Oh my God, that's an Illuminati ritual." And
This is a Rolling
how does
Stone
your mom
magazine.
know this, right?
And then she runs to Deepak Chopra for help.
Right. Just like Lindsay Lohan and Al Gore. So we actually feel that Lady Gaga is now placed out there for us to talk about, because go on, Jay, with this, Jamie.
Yeah, well, what we're talking about is high-profile rituals, and I call it mystery religion rated E for everyone. So if you have ever wished you could be a fly on the wall at a black magic ritual, you can stop wishing and grab a bowl of popcorn and get comfy on the couch and participate from the comfort of your very own home, because there is no difference between a sorcerer's ritual and, an Academy Award ceremony.
Or the Grammys.
Or the Grammys. You've got
Teen Choice Awards, American Idol.
Lady Gaga doing a blood ritual with an eerie light shining out behind her when she's hanging there covered in blood.
And the audience just cheers on as this
arch.
blood starts to pour from her. They're all screaming like a blood frenzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, her little monsters, as she calls them, her fans.
Using celebrities in black magic is nothing new. Look at Anton LaVey. Look at Kenneth Anger. Look at the beginning of the Church of Satan. You've got Jane Mansfield. They're all in Hollywood. You got Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra.
What was it that brought Scientology to our attention? Celebrities.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about Scientology?
Oh, God. L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, let's really look at just the some of the roots of this. Now, you've got L. Ron Hubbard hanging out with Jack Parsons.
And Aleister Crowley.
And Aleister Crowley. And this is John Whitesides Parsons, who started Jet Propulsion's laboratories. So these are the very guys that gave us nukes and rockets. Mm-hmm. This is where all the Nazis went when Project Paperclip occurred. And now JPL is the head of the incoming asteroids, which is the next major threat that they're going to be throwing at us, or are throwing at us currently. It will go from the Red Scare to terrorism. We've been through those two. We're into asteroids, and it'll be followed by aliens. This was all outlined by Werner von Braun, the lead Nazi scientist who was the head of the V2 rocket program, who came over on Project Paperclip when all the Nazis were not put away, they were brought here to America and also down to Chile and Argentina, where you can find a town of twins crafted by Josef Mengele, where actually George Bush and H.W. Bush have purchased land. So when we start to look at this puzzle, we actually find out that all of this astronomical science, all of our NASA and our space travels are actually based on this black magic that came through L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and Aleister Crowley as they were trying to attempt a moonchild ritual. They were using nukes. They were using subterranean chambers, putting children through massive rituals, also connected with atomic explosions, in an attempt to place a god form into a child. Now, I personally believe that Anna Nicole's baby is that moonchild. Because when we get to the end of Anna Nicole's story, now I have a film out called Anna Nicole, Brittany, and Mind Control.
Recommend that to everyone. Everyone should watch that.
Absolutely.
It's free on freemantv.com. It's free, all my stuff there for you to understand. Go to Hollywood Mind Control in my section there, and you'll get an earful. Anna Nicole's baby, when you get to the end of this tale, is actually a genetic creation through Nazi experiments to resurrect Hitler. There was such a thing as the Boys from Brazil, where they took Adolf Hitler's semen and stored it and used it to generate children. And this was made into a Hollywood film called The Boys of Brazil. Now, one of these Boys of Brazil turned out to be a man called Prince Frederick von Anhalt. Now, if you don't know about Prince Frederick von Anhalt, he actually keeps one of the first mother goddesses chained up, locked into his home with a padlock, and that is Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Wow.
She was one of the first presidential model mind control slaves. We've had others that have come out since then, like Bryce Taylor or Kathy O'Brien. And Bryce Taylor, of course, admitted to being owned by Bob Hope.
Yep.
And was used in many sexual rituals, performance of rituals. Well, what turns out with Anna Nicole is she was given over to a Nazi oil tycoon, J. Howard Marshall, who was that billionaire she was given to, right? He's 92 years old, right?
Yeah.
Well, She was mated with him in order for her child, who ended up being the granddaughter of Adolf Hitler, to make sure that this child would have all those billions. Prince Frederick von Anhalt turns out to be one of these Nazi genetic experiments where they inseminated Gretel Braun, which was Eva Braun's sister, who was Adolf Hitler's girlfriend, with Adolf Hitler's semen, and produced Prince Frederick von Anhalt, who then went on to mate with Anna Nicole at a mysterious ritual where you can see him say, something went on. Nobody really knows what happened, but that child is mine, he says. Now, of course, many people are coming out of the woodwork to say that little Danny Lynn was their child, but the one I believed was Prince Frederick von Anhalt, because this would make Danny Lynn, Anna Nicole's baby girl, Adolf Hitler's granddaughter, and now has been given $1 billion by a Nazi oil tycoon and is most likely a moon child. Wow. And this is how these stories unfold, and they're placed right in front of us every day as these, how many times, every time there's this missing girl or some sort of Jean-Benet Ramsey story, then it's Katie, and then it's Lacey, and then it's, always this one abducted child. We know that there are millions of abducted childs, but these particular ones are actually cloaked into these satanic ritual abuse systems, such as Jean-Benet Ramsey. And we find that the family are all involved in these weird cults. And then you find out that it's the same pathologist that did all of the autopsies on all of them, from Michael Jackson to Anna Nicole to Jean-Benet Ramsey, all the way back to John F. Kennedy. It was the same pathologist, right?
Oh my gosh.
Carol White every time came out.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So now you've got these high-profile rituals going on right in front of us in every way, shape, or form, and it's all much deeper than that. Because I could go one more level and show you how Barbara Bush is actually...
yes, tell us about that,
granddaughter of Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
Because her mom, Pauline Pierce, went off to France with Aleister Crowley to perform an OTO ritual, and if you know anything about the Ordo Templi Orientis, you know that their rituals are sexual, and she came back and was pregnant. But, of course, she was married to the owner of McCall's magazine, and his name eludes me right now. And so they, of course, said that it was his child. But when you have a look at Barbara Bush, who was Pauline Pierce's daughter, and Aleister Crowley, side by side, you will see clearly that Barbara Bush is actually the daughter of the Beast, which makes George W. Bush the grandson of the Beast. Now, how crazy is our world? Really?
There's some really interesting videos of Barbara Bush out there repeating herself using the repetitive enforcement, and just the stare that she had. It was evil. You
never blinked.
Feel it exactly.
Yeah, well, in the pictures, compare the pictures of Crowley and her, and it's you can't deny it, and you can see that same thing in W in his eyes.
Yes, and when you see them all running around with what they call the devil sign, that hand sign with the two fingers pointing, that actually, when you get back into ancient lore, is a symbol of Diana. I'm not sure what to think about that yet, but I've started digging in, and most of the things that we call satanic in symbolism is actually feminine.
Well, that goes back to Pythagoras, where 1 is the monad and God and male, and 2 is the first split, and it's evil and female. So you got two fingers up is the duad or the devil.
The 11. Yeah.
But talking about Scientology, what that is just a voluntary trauma-based mind control ritual played out over a long period of time, featuring electrocution and all sorts of other tortures. But even L. Ron Hubbard's son said that it's black magic and Satanism. He came out and said that my father is evil and he tried to abort me, and I walked in on him trying to give my mother abortion many times because they're trying to get this moon child, and if you don't get it just right, you got to start over. And so he was a botched abortion, and he grew up in the Hubbard household, and he came out to say that his dad is pure evil and thinks that he was the devil. And
he reported this.
L. Ron Hubbard said that he was the devil.
Yeah.
L. Ron Jr.
No, L. Ron Hubbard
himself.
Yeah.
Said he was the devil.
Yes, and there's no higher authority than him.
Well,
it's not just a society to produce gold medals for Tom Cruise.
Right.
Going back to that hand symbol for a bit, it's also interesting that in some movies, Crocodile Dundee probably the most popular, that hand symbol was used to call cattle. It was used to sedate an individual or an animal that was potentially a problem.
If you look at your hand, you have 5 fingers, and you have 5 points of the pentagram. And so when you see one pointing up, that's the top of the star, or the spirit, or the white magic element of it. And then 2 points up is a verse pentagram.
So you mean giving the bird is actually a positive symbol?
A good thing.
I wouldn't say that, but I'm saying the 2 fingers up and 3 down is an inverted pentagram. Because you have 2 up and 3 down.
Right.
It's interesting. A lot of Jesus paintings, he's got the pointer finger and the middle finger up together, and the other 2 down, making a.
But speaking of the single finger, now we're seeing all the celebrities with the word "shh" tattooed onto their fingers, and you'll see all these different stars from Hannah Montana on giving the sign of silence or putting the finger up to your lips.
Well, I mean, Hannah Montana and Demi Lovato have it on their album covers, and these are both Disney girls. Celine Dion does it, Paris Hilton, Rihanna, Madonna, Ozzy Osbourne, Lindsay Lohan. You know, you can get this picture of them putting the finger up to their lips, which is called the sign of silence. And this is a sign of secrecy regarding the mystery schools, and it's a symbolic illustration of one who has been initiated and illuminated. And in Thelema, which was Crowley's system, it's the affirmation of the station of Harpocrates, which is the Greek god of silence. And he was the child, the neophyte. You know, he's the trinity of Harpocrates, Horus, and Osiris.
So always you got to take this back to the Egyptian, because that's where this all stems from. Mm-hmm. And that's when you get back and you find the original incarnation of these signs and symbols and how they relate.
So it's a symbol of an initiate, but it also has another meaning in trauma-based mind control, which is also secrecy. You know, you don't talk about things that go on, everything that you're secluded and you can't, no one will understand you, so you might as well keep it a secret. And that's how they keep them locked up and isolated, because they think they have nowhere to go. No one will believe it anyway.
And shame and guilt, Incredible.
There's a couple topics that I wanted you guys to touch on. Some important ones that, I feel are important for everyone. The zeitgeist topic would be a good place. The Eye of Hell and transhumanism.
Okay.
Yeah, drones and clones.
Yeah, there you go.
Definitely the zeitgeist, you know.
Robots.
It's their perfect mind control slave. What we're seeing now is a replacement of our divine abilities, which have been taken away by whatever, you know, our environment or belief systems. And now that we're waking up that we should be having these abilities such as telepathy or teleportation or whatever you have it, here they come with a technological solution saying that these aren't inherent. You need this other element, you know, which is a cell phone to communicate, or you need the internet to be connected or whatever. So it's total technology versus organic life, basically.
Yep.
And if you want to talk about zeitgeist, we can do that.
Yeah, I think it's been an important kind of movement, I think, in a lot of different ways, because there are a good amount of, you know, good people out there who were woken up by zeitgeist. You know, it does present from the beginning a lot of information that would help, but there's also there's a dark side to it all, and I would kind of like to ask your help in illuminating others in that dark side.
Well, let me say that I am a grassroots conspiracy theorist. I've made all my own films, I've produced them and put them out to the world. The amount of hype that came behind Zeitgeist on their first day of release is beyond. For me, as someone who is a grassroots, who is trying to just, you know, build a following or build a listenership, there's no way that if you just make yourself a film and put it out there that you could get the type of attention that Zeitgeist did. No way. I mean, I've tried every route and every way, and so for me, immediately, Zeitgeist was a red marker because of the fact that they had 1 million hits on their first day out. And this just doesn't occur. And then it just kept going and kept...
Well, there's this great letter that it's kind of disputed, but I'm going to use it as a example anyway, by Civil War General Albert Pike, who was also the 33rd degree Scottish Rite. And he said that the Third World War would be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by agentures of the Illuminati between Zionists and Muslims and Christians and atheists. And so he said, we'll unleash the nihilist and the atheist and provoke a social cataclysm that, will make everyone disillusioned with Christianity, religion, and every other thing so that they can bring about the pure doctrine of Lucifer. And so this is talk about fomenting the Third World War. And Zeitgeist goes into that. I don't want to disrespect anybody who's been woken up by Zeitgeist or anybody in the Zeitgeist movement because I have friends with that stamp on their Facebook picture,
Yeah.
But so what we have here is classic problem, reaction, solution. So you show the people what is wrong, and then you swoop in with your solution, which is the Venus Project.
Yes.
And let me just say, the first Zeitgeist movie, it's in 3 parts. Religion, I think it's taxes, and then it was...
Religion, fiat
9/11.
currency, and then 9/11.
Yeah. And the religious section was very poorly researched, in my opinion.
There's really only one book that even gets on that topic, and it has no foundation.
Yeah, if you look, he's cited the same book like many, 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 many times. So it's not just Jesus is Horus, and so you don't have to believe in anything anymore. They just want to get religion out of the way, so you can be like, okay, that's done with. Now what? And so they're all turning to technology to save them. And you can see this in the movies with Transformers.
Yes.
Optimus Prime is a robot Christ who battles the Decepticon, the robot devil, also Terminator Salvation. And Wall-E is a robot Christ as well who sacrifices himself for humanity.
Second Terminator.
But then talking about Terminator, so they have this thing they call Skynet, right, which is all the computers of the world linked together. And that's just like Venus Project, in my opinion.
Yep.
I've seen all 3. I know what they're talking about. They worship Jacques Fresco like he is God.
Well, by the end of the film, if you start to get into the addendums, you find that they clearly state that humanity cannot be trusted, that we are evil, vile beings, and that the only way humanity could ever exist on planet Earth is if they are subservient to a supercomputer.
Yes.
So they don't give you any of that in their first part.
And not only that, the supercomputer defines everything that you do. It builds your house, it regulates your food, it tells you what to do, like all these resource-based economies. So what happens when a human being is no longer a needed resource?
Right, when the computer decides that we're just more of a problem
than a solution. Yeah, so you program the supercomputer. Get rid of the problem, and then it just eradicates humans. And then it's done its, prime directive.
Same old tale, Battlestar Galactica was pretty much that tale, and that's a Mormon belief system there. And they say repeatedly in that show that it all happened before and it'll all happen again.
And I find it funny because in Zeitgeist they talk about the Verchip, which is so what's the difference between a Verchip and a Venus Project? And now Venus is Lucifer,
right? That's what I was just about to get to. If you look up Lucifer in the dictionary, you'll find 2 definitions and then a sub-definition. The first 2 definitions of Lucifer in the dictionary are Venus, the planet, and a friction match. Now, if I could just toss in the friction match symbolism real fast, and this plays into Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix and everything else, how they had a secret society through Sirius Black. All this ties into the same mystery school teachings that we're talking about. But when you look at this puzzle and you see the Venus Project and the Lucifer, okay, then you get to Phoenix Pictures, which uses a friction match as their icon, as their logo. So a Lucifer Pictures that boils up into a fiery phoenix, the idea of the Illuminati coming out and taking over. And their 3 films that they were really known for was child labor camps with Disney, which was called Holes. And so this was a Phoenix Disney combination with Sigourney Weaver teaching about child labor camps. And then they put out The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was pushing the human cloning and stem cell research for human cloning. And that's what The Sixth Day was all about. And then you get Apt Pupil, which was a story written by Stephen King, which is all about Nazi worship. And all under the banner of Lucifer or Venus. Now they're going to come to us with the Venus Project and try and say, well, it was just in Venus, Florida. Well, guess what? So is Celebration Florida.
Yeah.
We're back to Disney again. I mean,
Celebration creeps me out.
I don't understand how one man can design a whole community, because you can't.
Especially a man who hates children.
He says in the future we won't want to have children. He actually says that children are a pain in the ass. So whatever he's doing, it's not for the future of the human race.
And
It's really boils down to what is civilization for. You know, it seems, as we could tell, just to mine this planet for resources
And human resources.
And the human resources.
Because they need our emotions as well. You know, they feed off all types of
Monsters, Inc. That movie, when I saw that movie, I was like, okay, bingo, here we go. Because fear and then laughter, which is love, and it shows the power, enough to power, the whole city? It's like a battery.
That's the moral of the movie was laughter was more powerful than screams.
Yes.
But talking about vampirism, another form of that is psychic vampirism. And it's an actual thing that people live off, chi or prana or whatever you call it, is energy that they suck off you because they have no outlet for themselves.
Here's the crux of the problem, is that we've been separated from our very natural system. If you look at money destroys all synchronistic, miraculous events, because now you believe you deserve it. You have earned enough of these magical notes in order to deserve something. And so now there's no more miracles in your life, no more giving and receiving, and no more blessings from the great force of the universe, right? God or whatever. You are now solely in charge of your reality by collecting these magical notes. In the same way, we have been separated from the natural beauty. So even to the point where if you look at landscaping companies, they only produce sawgrass and prickly bushes and violent plants because you have to protect your home, right? So you can't even get beautiful, loving, food-bearing plants in your yard or in your business or anything. You got to grow some sort of prison system out of the plant form. So even our plants are becoming ugly and aggressive and being replaced by all the beauty. And as we have been separated from the beauty, we then start to generate what are called control dramas, which are methods of psychically sucking the energy out of other people. And this is the cause of all conflict in our planet.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have an understanding that we have trained ourselves as children to build up these control dramas that then we use later in life to suck the energy off of others. So you got people who will never shut up, or an intimidator, an interrogator who's sucking all your energy and doesn't let you get in a word, or those people that go to make sure that you can't get a word in edgewise, while they think of something else to say.
Mm-hmm.
And all these different methods, or being aloof, going off and hiding in your corner, making people come ask you what's wrong. This is another way of psychic vampirism. And if we were able to start to understand this and then regenerate the beauty in our lives and be able to see and gather energy from the beauty around us, then we could share that beauty and that energy easily with anyone that's lacking, and we would not suffer ourselves. And so part of this whole system is to remove us from all of that natural beauty and replace it with this aggressive type of, money worship, things of that nature. And the solution lies in us returning to the beauty, returning to gathering energy psychically from the love, animals, plants, everything around us, and then sharing that with the others, because there's only one cure to trauma-based mind control, and that is nurturing. That's it. There's no other way out. And each of these girls that are being put through these rituals, poor Britney, even poor Gaga, are actually victims that deserve our nurturing, our love. How many people said, "Oh God, I'm glad that bitch is dead," when Anna Nicole died, And
they're victims of victims of victims, and you cannot blame them.
Even George W. Bush was a victim.
This is a bloodline of traumatized, brain-damaged people. And I mean that in every sense of the word, because their brain has been damaged by going through what they had to go through. And getting back to what you said, what is civilization for?
Mm-hmm.
Colin Wilson has a great quote about that. He says, modern civilization induces an attitude of passivity. So when a Stone Age hunter set out to trap a wild animal, he was aware of his will as a living force. But when a modern city dweller walks down a crowded thoroughfare, he feels no sense of challenge or involvement. His city was built by other people, and he can go through an ordinary day's work in a state approximating sleep. Most of his routine tasks are carried out by the robot, and there is neither the need or the opportunity to use the will. So, sorcerers and robots will always go together, and now that I've said this, you'll realize that it's true if you keep on watching, because they've always used technology to control the masses.
Mm-hmm.
So along with, there's Michael Aquino. He was the man who was too evil for the Church of Satan, and he split off and created the Temple of Set, which is what we were talking about, the Egyptian god Set versus Horus, the pedophile rape. Okay. He was a national security agency general and an army specialist in intelligence and psychological warfare, and he wrote a paper called From Psyop to Mind War, The Psychology of Victory. And in it, he states that enemy populations could be subdued by inflicting a state of terror or feelings of imminent destruction, and capitulation of violence can be induced by ELF waves.
Which is where we're at right now, where everybody feels that we are at the end, and there is no time left to grow your garden, no time to go out and share with your friends, no time left at all. Yeah. And we're stuck in the reptilian brain because that generates the fight or flight status. But if we could convince the world, and this is a very difficult thing to convince people of, that the universe is actually miraculous in its nature, and that your true divine purpose is always within you, and miracles, the universe will actually form itself around to make sure that the right thing happens to you if you allow it. Mm-hmm. And trying to convince people of the miraculous or the synchronistic reality of life is very difficult, because you won't believe it until you experience it. And until you even think about it and go out and try to experience it, it's never even reflected, just like magic, as a portion of your existence.
Mm-hmm. And as long as they keep us in fear and searching outside ourselves for everything, disconnected from nature, they've killed the mothers, the creative energy, creativity in general.
And nurturing and unconditional love. Now, nurturing, unconditional love, and forgiveness are the three things that they're scared of. That's why they hate Jesus and mothers.
Yep. Do you think they even created a phrase to pervert it with nature versus nurture?
Yes.
Seem as if there's some kind of conflict between the two, when really they are. Nurture is natural.
Right.
Well, let's talk about some solutions and some options. I mean, we wake up to these realities, and it can be kind of scary. It can be very scary. You grieve. It's sad. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I want to focus on some ideas for some solutions to take back our divinity and to create our own magic.
Well, I want to put a call out to all the girls and women to take back their femininity.
Thank you.
Quit listening to Hollywood and the magazines and technology and materialism, and realize where your power comes from. And it's nature. It's Mother Nature. You're put here to nurture and feed things. That's why you have breasts. Right? So
if
every girl could go back to the kitchen, I'm sorry, but that's where we're supposed to be at, and it's fun, and it's your true soul's purpose to be feeding things.
And the world and our lives revolve around food. As we go out into rainbow gatherings, gathering with 10 to 20,000 other blessed beings in the national forest, you'll see quickly that everything revolves around the kitchen. It is the heart of anything that goes on. And we are in a position now where we can't even call our stuff food. I mean, fast food, whatever. You can't eat out there.
We drove 1,000 miles across the country, and there was no food.
We had to starve.
Off the highway.
Oh, yeah. It's bad.
It's Pizza Hut, Subway,
Okay, so within a solution is providing this love vibe into the food. So now you have people out there working a job that they hate it. So you've got an angry, aggressive person that hates doing what he's doing, cooking your food, and you're eating that. And you don't understand.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's the same thing with like Dr. Emoto and what he says with water, and the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so one of the very simple solutions is to feed others, and you will see this vibration, whether you recognize it or not, will spread through these people. And so one solution is to get back to nurturing, cooking, and having block parties. Go out and get to know your neighbor.
Yeah.
It's so easy. You remember when kids used to play in the streets? I mean, that was just my generation. It's gone now.
Yep.
It's gone. You don't see that anymore. We all played in our front yards. We all had imaginations of incredible will. You could create a no time zone where a plant became this beautiful world that you had now inhabited, and you lost all sense of space and time until your mother was yelling to come in for dinner. And this is the very nature that we have to find and go back to. So the idea of creative play and the childlike wonder of existence has been eradicated. This is why they are instituting sex into children's lives at such an early age, because the concepts of sex and the idea of coupling actually destroys this imagination and destroys that little world that you have. And that's why of the sorcerers, the video games of kill, 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 have all demolished the imagination of the child. So now we have, these clones and drones coming up. Every college student, I live in a college town, looks like the last one that came through. I think the year has changed.
No. Clones and drones, yeah. It's really turned into this society where it's don't use your imagination and don't use your creativity, because here's a video game or here's something automated to do it for you.
I remember when a box was the best toy ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents got a TV. I got their box.
Yep.
They'll tell you that incredulity is their greatest weapon. So the fact that people won't, here I am trying to convince the world that Barack Obama is actually a clone of the pharaoh Akhenaten. Now, this is a very playful thought, but it could also be very true.
Yes.
And when you start to introduce playful thoughts into a serious system, you get all this revolution. You get all these people like, oh, you don't play with me. This is serious business. We don't have time to be thinking about silly thoughts. And this is where our true power lies, because the world's much stranger than everyone knows.
Well, the first step in the magical path, the number 0 in the tarot card, is the Fool.
Right.
Yes.
So he has to learn to have no ego and to enjoy being silly, because that brings happiness to other people. And not worry about.
So now we've got words for it. We call it fronting, or they have other terms that I can't think of right now. I'm so out of touch with.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there again, the whole idea of fronting is promoted by the Hannah Montana, the idea of having two faces. This is a very normal state of being for the aristocracy, to have one face that you present to the public and one face that you have hidden behind the scenes. And this is the way they want to make all of us.
Yeah, one of their main goals is to destroy your innocence. That's why they're making sex so available at such a young age. I call it sexual terrorism. Yep. Because I'm terrorized when I go to New York City or any other, metropolis.
Yeah.
And just amazing to me. And I feel like they are terrorizing me. But this whole idea of childlike play and innocence, it goes back to the Bible. If you want to hear, even Jesus said, unless you become as little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Yes. And whoever can humble himself and make himself like a child is the greatest.
So the parent that is there now, of course, they've separated and destroyed the nuclear family and have mom at work, dad at work, and the latchkey kid. The parents are the main focus here, and the children are the main focus. That they need to come and reintegrate with their children. They need to fulfill that need that they have, that lack of energy that they're not receiving from beauty. So we have to have more child interaction. You see that they even have separated us by age groups, so that's why we have these grade schools putting all of the same generation, all of the same age together. And this is a horrible idea, because this separates all the generations so that they no longer learn from the old folks, and the adults are no longer a part of the child's lives. And so it's a matter of the parents getting back to their children, spending the necessary time it requires, because children need a lot of energy. There need to be other people involved. The community needs to be there. Grandma needs to be there. The whole family unit. And then grow gardens, in a most playful way. That will start to solve all of the environmental issues. If everybody just started urban gardening like we are doing, we have a massive garden now going on in our front yard. We're about to have just a beautiful bounty by next year.
So fantastic.
and we're trying to get the kids involved. We got a couple of kids around. They come over in their clones and Hannah outfits, and we try to let them feel nurtured, join in and learn. One of the biggest problems with the Egyptian culture was that you could never expand. You had to follow in your father's footsteps. There were no choices in this. Mm-hmm. But now we're in a society where we have this open communication, and you can start to learn from so many different genres. Just spend, a day or two on YouTube and see how many things you could learn. Yeah. And we can start to regenerate innocence.
Innocence and creativity, imagination, play.
Nature.
Yes, we can all nurture ourselves out of this because every single person on this planet is a victim of trauma-based mind control.
I agree with that.
The only solution for that is to feel safe.
Yes.
And the safest I feel is when I'm home and someone's cooking me dinner, right before dinner time.
Yeah.
It's just that moment where you could do anything because you don't have to worry someone's going to take care of you, and you can make a painting, or you can go play outside or plant a seed or do whatever. So we just got to start feeding each other.
And they even messed with that as well, with fast food and don't sit down and have dinner anymore. Don't come together as a family. Be separate.
I started working as a chef because I loved cooking food, and a couple years into it, that love quickly changed faces, and I noticed that even going home and trying to cook, for other people, by the time I was done cooking, I wouldn't even want to eat because I felt so awful.
Yeah.
And that's just indicative of what you're saying there, that creating it as a job and putting a price tag on it and everything else that they've done, even with food, has almost subconsciously perverted it to all of us.
Fast food is classified as a weapons system by the military.
Yeah.
McDonald's, Burger King, these are not places that just spawned, and you can see in my corporate logo studies that these are not just happenstance things, that these were planned and initiated. And actually, if you ask the McDonald's corporate official what their job is, it's actually real estate, because they own property in the Vatican, at the pyramids, at the, they own all the prime real estate. And then the food itself is actually as a weapons system. And you can hear Kathy O'Brien come out about McDonald's French fries. You can find Lindsay Lohan trying desperately to get McDonald's French fries into her rehab, where she had placed herself for $50,000 a night. You can find Britney Spears discussing McDonald's French fries.
How many photos of the paparazzi did they have Britney pulling up to McDonald's?
Yeah.
What's in those French fries? They don't even rot.
I know.
You can leave a Happy Meal in your car for a week and it will look exactly the same.
Yep.
Probably taste the same as well.
Right. And then all the signs and symbols that you see as you drive down the highway, as you pass Roy Rogers, McDonald's, Target, Walmart, these are all occult ritual signs. The sun sign of Target, the pentagram of Walmart, the fish goddess of Starbucks with her pentagram, the golden arches of McDonald's, the Burger King or Elsie, or Elmer.
Dairy Queen is
Dairy Queen. These are all ritual symbols that you will find within the occult orders, especially some like Freemasonry, one of the lead occult orders that rules our planet. These are actually occult signs and symbols that are constantly being broadcast in your brain as you drive down the road. I mean, and we've gotten to the point now where you can't tell what town you've driven into because it's, it's the same corporate logo after.
Oh, yeah. You know what? It looks like it reminds me of regurgitation. I lived in Florida for a little bit before here, and you drive from town to town, and I felt like somebody just threw up. It was like repeat, as soon as you got into, here's McDonald's, here's this, here's that, same things over and over.
Well, we had a funny story trying to find a friend's house, and he's like, well, when you see the McDonald's, make a left, and then, when you see the Walgreens, you're almost there. And we're like, we saw like 4 McDonald's and Walgreens already. We're lost, man. There's no landmarks.
We weren't even on the right side of town.
No, we weren't. Yep. You can leave town, the parking lot of Target, Best Buy, and Home Depot and drive 1,000 miles and pull off the highway, and you're going to be at Target, Best Buy, and Home Depot.
Yes!
Time loop.
That's it. Repeat. Yeah. Where am I? Here I am. I was there. Where? Right here.
This whole concept really stemmed from Walt Disney and the idea of the experimental prototype civilization of tomorrow, which is Epcot. And when you walk into Epcot, you give them your credit card information, you buy your couple $100 tickets, Then they say, well, your tickets might not be safe. Why don't you give us your thumbprint? So then you got to give them your fingerprint. Then you go into the big ball, which is owned by Siemens, whose very corporate logo is on the Auschwitz prison camps. And you go into Siemens' big spaceship Earth, and there they take your picture, and they ask you where you're from, and all of a sudden you see your image floating to your hometown. So now they've got your credit card information, your biometrics, your face, your fingerprint, and you're all stuck inside of this experimental prototype civilization controlled by every military industrial corporation out there, from GE, RCA, Martin Marietta,
UNESCO.
who builds nukes, UNESCO, It's a Small World. They were eugenicists, guys. Yeah. That's the programming in there. Or you come out of Space Mountain after you've been traumatized in the roller coaster, and they show you how you're going to live your future. And this is predictive programming so that you will expect this in the future. And then they serve you the most god-awful food that you've ever eaten in your entire existence and charge you $23 for a burger, and you're trapped in this experimental prototype civilization, and you can't escape, so you have to eat the food. And pretty soon that will be our world.
Oh my gosh. No. Let's
tyranny loves conformity.
Yes.
And they can't handle anything that's imaginative or creative or outside what they have control over.
So it's time to use our imaginations and create and get back in touch with nature.
Well, even Walt Disney calls it Imagineering.
Yes.
So
thank you.
At the subatomic level, if you believe in quantum mechanics, we are actively imagineering the world into existence.
So with all the Hollywood programming, we create what they program into us.
Yes.
It's funny.
Consciousness.
I'd wondered about Satanism because they push something very similar to that ideal. I'd wondered if that was kind of a part of their program, that they put that out to make everyone who thought, you're going to think for yourself, you're going to create your reality, you're a Satanist. Let's put you over here, you worship the devil.
Well, let's just talk about magic and Satan and Christianity for a second, because I was never allowed as a child to read occult things. I was only allowed to read about the occult through the eyes of Christianity.
Yes.
Which was a good lesson. I mean, my family, instead of playing Monopoly, we played Bible Trivia, Scholar Edition, and I didn't have comic books. I had Chick Tracts comics. It tells you the history of the Catholic Church, and it even goes back to Babylon and Semiramis. So there's a lot of good stuff there. But when I grew up, and I cracked open my first book on occult magic. What is it about, right? And the first lesson was the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And here, you're calling upon guardian angels, which my mom always called upon. She loves Jesus, and she would never have anything to do with Satan or evil. But this occult ritual of the pentagram, you call upon Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Ariel. And actually, if you read, the purpose of magic is to unite yourself with your holy guardian angel. And the word of power, the most powerful word in ritual magic, is the tetragrammaton, which is the name of God, or Yahweh, YHVH, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And so it gets very confusing what is devil worship and what is worship of God. And the occult is all tied up in there, and it's not what you think it is.
Absolutely. I thought that was the most ironic part about calling it evil.
Even the lesser banishing ritual is based on the Lord's Prayer from Matthew 6.
Well, look at Catholicism. I grew up as Catholic. I was brought up Catholic, and then when I got into high school, I was introduced to some Wiccan things and some witchcraft, and I was like, wow, Catholicism has an altar, and they burn incense, and they're drinking blood and eating the body of Christ, and wow, isn't it so similar? I remember at a very young age, like, what is this?
Because you cannot do magic without emotions. And this is another very huge piece of the puzzle, because what they want is to save us from our emotions. So when you see the technology and the robots and even Cybermen of Doctor Who, we're going to rescue you from your pain because it hurts. But your emotions are your moral compass.
There seems to be almost an order coming down through the churches as well, because there's an awful lot of sermons these days telling people that their feelings are wrong, and they should pay more attention to their reason, their logical brain than their emotions and their feelings.
So the purpose of using all these things, like you said in the Catholic Church, the altar and the chalice and the costumes and the music, and like I said, the pentagram ritual, you got to cover your five senses. But you're trying to get the public to an emotional state that you want them to be at, so you can charge it and release it. Now, if you want to call it sorcery, then you'd be right. So
wow, yeah, yep. And look at what they get when they gather around, like with the Pope, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, two things. Freeman, I'd like to have you take a moment and let our listeners know about the vast amounts of information you have on your website. You've been going at this for, I don't know, about 6 years or so, and knowledge is power, and if there's anything you wanted to know, your website is just loaded. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you got there?
Yes, I happily classify myself as a conspiracy theorist, and perhaps this is due to the fact that I continually am right. So I can stick with it. What I have is freemantv.com, and this is just an open site of all the esoteric that you could possibly imagine, from Hollywood mind control up to ancient technologies of the future, where I discuss space war, the new technologies with CERN and HARP. I also have a long study on all of the things that we discussed today. I have probably over 700 hours of videos and radio shows on freemantv.com, all free there for everybody to view and enjoy. I step out of the boundaries, like I say, showing the president to be a clone, showing Barbara Bush to be a grandson of or the daughter of Crowley, things of this nature, take it to the ultimate level and yet constantly get it right. And I do a live radio show every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central, and you can listen right there at the Freeman Radio Zone on freemantv.com. And I'm trying to do now also a TV show on this new network known as Alternative Media Network, or AMN, and the link is there as well, where I'm taking a lot of my radio shows and converting them to video. And I'm just really excited to share everything with everyone. Like, the moment I get a video done, I'm trying to get it up on YouTube. I never think of trying to make money off of this.
Yeah.
I do sell 6 DVDs at this point, one for each year, getting into each and every one of these topics, from corporate logos and their occult meanings to who is our goddess Columbia. I made the first ever documentary on HARP, the ionospheric heater earthquake machine. Televised the first ever television show on chemtrails. I performed the first ever all-night ritual with the Mayans at the pyramids of Tikal and videoed all of that. So it goes many, many levels, many places. And I did end up putting them in DVD format for people to purchase because they like to help me continue. And that's the one way, that and donations, that I keep the show on the air.
Yes, you live off of donations. This is your life. You both, this is your work, and
I am a professional conspiracy theorist, no doubt about it. And I've now had children go out and give reports on Barack Obama being a clone of Akhenaten and getting A's in their classroom because I give you enough evidence to wow your own teachers. And
that's excellent.
I love that 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds are listening to my show. It is completely agreeable by all of their parents. They love my message, which is a message of love. And they love that their children can look at their world in such an imaginative way instead of all the fear-based type of stuff that's going on.
Excellent. And Jamie, you're working on something yourself. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it started out as a magazine called Weird Stuff Magazine, but now it's grown to be more than 160 pages, so it's more like a book now, like a Time Life book.
Nice.
Fully color illustrated, images on every page. It's in magazine format, but it's got 20 different articles about it's called Operation Culture Creation. Weird
Very
Stuff
nice.
Encyclopedia. Yeah, maybe next time we can get into the drones and clones and robots and my own system of magic, which is a counterspell to Crowley's Thelema, and I call it Slack Magic. So maybe we can talk about it next time.
So that is
Yeah.
Slack magic versus black magic.
Yep.
Oh, I love it. That's fantastic. Any predictions you want to make? I know every now and then you foresee things.
I predict everyone getting their hands in the dirt. and making this world green and beautiful again. I've seen it all over Lawrence. As soon as we started the project, we started walking around the neighborhood to get some ideas and to see who else was into it, and lo and behold, it was everyone. And so I was like, they're ahead of me, but it's awesome because, you can't lose when people are growing things.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I mean, people are, doom and gloom in 2012, and I'm like, man,
this
we
is
can
what
totally
saving
turn
the
this
world
around.
Absolutely. The only predictions that would come from the negative sense is if people didn't get a grasp of what we've been explaining here, and then we could easily predict what would occur because it's all programmed in there. And this is how I make my predictions, in that people follow the programming. So hopefully any of my predictions from now on will be false and faulty. I would be more than happy to see that happen, because I had predicted 9/11. I did predict the banking crash in 10/13. I did predict W being forced into office and that Barack Obama would not be considered an American citizen. This is all just because that is the scheduled program that we are witnessing. So the predictions become easier and easier as you understand the programming more and more. And currently, as we were discussing with Albert Pike, who is the Grand Sovereign Commander of Freemasonry of the Temple of the 33rd, who predicted the 3 world wars, or outlined them, actually, to tell how they would be.
Outline the script.
Yes. We can see this coming into full fruition through Barack Obama and the things that he is doing, which I outline on my show. And if the script were to be followed and everybody not to catch on, the next thing to occur would be the Vatican taking the Temple Mount back to the Christian roots, back to the Vatican, back to Rome, away from the Muslims. And this would be the very event that would spark the World War III that Albert Pike predicted. So I would believe that this was going to occur on a ceremonial date of the 4th of July. There are many reasons you can find on my website. We won't want to get into that. So if everybody just stays clones and drones, then the next major event will be the Vatican taking the Temple Mount, and this being the spark of World War III.
So everyone can hear the key there. That means if you take some responsibility for yourself, it will pay forward to others, and we can get out of this jam.
Yes.
Yeah,
Getting
collectively.
out of this is so easy.
Yeah, it is.
So
and
easy.
fun.
And fun.
And healthy.
It is. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to connecting with both of you again and creating a better reality for all of us.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. This has been wonderful and beautiful, and we love you both.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both, Shane and Tanya.
Yeah, love you guys. Thanks.
We'll do it again.